I'm Jeb Butler of the Butler Law Firm. We're often asked, how much is my case worth? And as you probably have figured, there's no precise answer to that question. But there are some factors you can think about to help figure it out. So today we'll talk about 4 factors that go into the question of how much your case is worth, and then one bonus. The first factor that we'll talk about today is injuries. This is the most important factor when we talk about the value of a case, and it makes some intuitive sense. I mean, if someone's been in a car collision, they have compound fractures, that's obviously a more serious case, and you're talking about more money than you would be if it was a soft tissue case. In fact, sometimes injuries can be so serious that it changes the question. If someone's been in a car wreck, to use that as an example, and they've become paralyzed from the waist down, or an amputation was necessary, or even if someone lost their life, then often the question isn't how much is my case worth. The question becomes how much money is there? How much money can your lawyer find through car insurance policies, or through perhaps a business that the at-fault driver was working for at the time of the collision, or maybe even personal assets of the at-fault driver if that person had significant money. But if the injury is the kind from which a recovery is expected, then it makes sense to go on down this list and to think more about what the case is worth. And the next thing we'll talk about is medical bills. This is a pretty important factor, and people use it a lot for what I'll call back of the envelope or approximate calculations. You'll see people who say that a car wreck case is worth 3 times the past medical bills, or 2 times, or 4 times. And those calculations are a little silly because it's just not that exact, but they're not totally crazy either. I mean, sometimes that does give a pretty decent ballpark estimate. There are 2 kinds of medical bills that you can think about. Most people think about past medical bills. But in a case where injuries are serious and treatment is ongoing, you can also talk about future medical bills, as long as there's some evidentiary support for that. Usually a doctor or some other medical professional saying, in the future this person is going to have the following medical needs. Then you can talk about past medical bills, and that's a part of the recovery, and the future medical bills. The next thing that we'll talk about is the damage to the car. At first blush, this doesn't seem like it would matter a lot in a personal injury case. We're not talking about compensation for the car, we're talking about injuries. But the two are related in this way. Imagine that you're a juror and you're hearing a car wreck case. Well, if the damage to the injured person's car is serious, if it's half of it smashed in, then most jurors don't have a problem saying, yeah, I bet the injuries to the person sitting in that car are also serious. But if it's just a little scratch on the bumper, then a lot of times juries, and as a result insurance adjusters, think, I wonder if these injuries are real. So the damage to the car can be a pretty big factor. The next thing we'll talk about are the actions of the defendant or the at-fault driver. I'll write down these acts for defendant's acts. And I think most of us sort of understand this on an intuitive level too. If the at-fault driver was drinking and driving, or texting and driving, or if the at-fault driver hit and then tried to run off but got caught later, then that makes the case worth a little more in a couple of reasons. First, it means that the injured person may be able to seek punitive damages. That is, damages imposed by the jury to punish the at-fault driver for what he or she did wrong. And then the other reason is that it frankly irritates jurors. Jurors don't like to see people drinking and driving, texting and driving, hitting and running. So verdicts tend to be larger because lawyers and insurance adjusters look down the road and perceive that larger verdict, then settlements are often also larger, so the case is worth more. Now, it's time for our sort of bonus round. Some people seem to labor under the misconception that every case has some precise, intrinsic, our inherent value. And that if they could just name this number and express using the right words why they think that is the number, then the insurance company would just open up its wallet and say, yes, absolutely, here's your check. That the insurance company would be persuaded and say, oh, that must be right, and out of the goodness of their heart would pay because it was the right thing to do. That ain't how the world works, at least not this world. Insurance companies are for-profit companies, and they don't give out their money just because it feels like the nice thing to do. They do it when they don't have a choice, when they know that if they don't pay, they're going to go to trial in court and get beat. So that leads us to our bonus factor, which is this. Can you go to trial and win? If the answer is no, then the insurance company doesn't have much to fear. They can lowball you all day because they know you can't do anything about it. So this is where having a good lawyer can make a big difference. Because if you end up with a lawyer who knows how to try a case and is not afraid to try a case, and all of a sudden your case is worth a lot more.